Welcome to another episode of the Bandwagon Podcast. And over the last sort of few weeks, I've been in a very reminiscent mood. I think it's just reflective in terms of the time of the year and I don't know, just general age, really. But one of those main characters around that time when I was growing up has kindly joined me after many attempts that I've tried to steer him to come on and today he's going to share like many aspects of his private life, for everybody, and I really appreciate him taking that time out. So, without further ado, welcome Tarli Digital.
How's it going, Ricky?
Tarli, I just want to stop you there for a second, right? I have nobody has ever chosen a background before, but the background that you've chosen there is tremendous.
I use this at work, so why not?
What's that like? What's that in terms of like? Is it giving you a feel of the presidential kind of quality?
It is. I've heard that they've got the president has a button on his desk, so every president, it's like one press and he can get anything, but like one item. I think Donald Trump had like Diet Coke, like chilled, ready. Press that button. And I actually quite like Diet Coke, so like. I made the button rack up there on my desk, press the button and on my let's get me a bit of diet.
I think Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, didn't he, when he pressed it?
He probably didn't need the button because the liberty still there.
Oh, that's a great start anyway. So, firstly, how are you?
I'm good. I'm blessed, man.
Yeah, we'll build up to it, yeah, so we'll kind of ease ourselves into it. But like one of the things that I always kind of start off with when I'm speaking to people on the podcast is kind of like the big what kind of a young person were they like. So what was a young Tarli like as a kid growing up, and where?
Growing up in the community, I wasn't a popular kid at school. I wasn't as confident as I am now. Quite the opposite, really. Very shy, very timid. Not part of the popular kind of crew. But I think the one thing that really connected me with the popular crew was the love for music and Bhangra music. And growing up in West Bromwich, which is the core of the Black Country and around the corner from Handsworth, and surrounded by kind of great Bhangra pioneers, and that kind of connected me with a lot of people locally. With that in mind, with my interest in DJing and making beats and stuff, that quiet, timid Tarli became slightly popular.
So we've known each other roughly about 25 years, all in all, probably a little bit longer, because when we used to actually see each other on the bus. So where did you go? Cadbury's, or was it? No, which college did you go?
No, I used to work in Quinton.
That's it. So we used to I see on the 11 when I used to get off to go to school.
Yeah.
And then you were killing it then.
Yeah, I used to jump off at Bearwood, the bus from West Brom, and then I'd cross the street. And as I'm about to jump onto my next one, that's when I kind of met you and the others.
Yeah, the others. Yeah. And it was we always used to end up like talking about Bhangra music, and I didn't even know how deep you were into kind of music at that stage, because it was just more conversation. And you're always very well dressed, really stush. Always remember you with a big umbrella. Every time you used to walk with that umbrella, and I think, oh, this geezer's on it. So like, how quickly did you go from there back and getting into DJing? Because I remember like your first kind of I knew when you came on screen, but like the hard graft that you were doing before then was for a good number of years as well.
Yeah, so you see, Bhangra and music itself has always kind of occupied a certain part of my life, space. I've always had a day job. I've always worked in an industry, which is where I used to go to in Quinton. And I used to work for Birmingham City Council at that time. So for me, but not the Shankly, and that's how got to speak to you guys and the others, and we'd have those long conversations. And so I was always into DJing, and I think for me the first kind of break was one of my neighbours. He's passed away now, Michael Sandhu, rest in peace. Central Boys, he used to be called. as a young kid, my other not down on the cigar helped him out with his speakers and his very heavy TV screens and whatnot. And from there, I bought my own gear and started kind of, making my own mixes and kind of, experimenting with instrumentals and acapellas. And then I got a bit of an interest in radio. So I take West Brom. There used to be like an RSL 30-day licensed radio station. I don't know if they still do them, but they used to pop up here and there. And on one of those, it was like an Afro-Caribbean station, and they let me do like a Bhangra slot.
Yeah.
So for 30 days, man, I had my own radio show. I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just spinning. And I got a bit brave, and I started ringing people, for some interviews. And out of all the people that kind of entertained my random calls were Simon and Diamond and Sajid Badi from Monarchy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I rang loads of people. A lot of people put the phone down on me.
You see, well, I was just going to say that because you kind of remember those ones, don't you, more than any. You always have a special place for people who actually took the chance on you and stuff like that.
Of course,
but the ones that where you kind of expect, oh, hang on, I'm doing you a favor, and then all of a sudden it's like the kind of there's that apprehension there, or it's just the ghosting. The ghosting pisses me off.
Yeah. Well, I get it.
Why do you, I go, Todd, here's a question. Like, why do you think that is so? I'm not saying it's common, but it happens when people get to a certain level of perceived fame, that the blanking and this kind of new persona, like, oh, I don't hang around with this geezer, he's a beg, or this geezer's like this.
I think what it is when people kind of get kind of artificial kind of attention, when I thought you get a bit, sometimes the ego does kick in. I probably had many moments like that. I think, when people start believing their own hype, these kind of things can happen. Have I kind of blanked and ghosted people? Probably have. I've had my ups and downs personality-wise throughout the years. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from. Once you get a chance, no matter what. But going back to that RSL, it was a 30-day license where the frequency was contained really to Sandwell. So all the people who didn't entertain me, 99% of them, they're probably thinking, why am I going to go on this random guy's TV show on High Street, West Bromwich? And when he's probably got no target audience. But Simon Diamond and Serge was big for me. That was, and I was a huge fan of both of those entities. Grew up listening to Anarchy, and I'd say Simon Diamond, one of the main kind of producers that inspired me and my sound. So it's great just talking to them. And Simon from Simon Diamond actually became a real good friend of mine, a bit of a mentor over the years as well. But Serge was the guy who kind of who came on to the show, and we clicked, and I go, Baji, I want to play this mix I've done on Umbi. So I played him a little remix I did of Umbi, which was the original Umbi it was the Umbi from Amr, that Amr did, and I kind of mixed some beats on top of it. And he liked it. He goes, we should go to the studio. I'm working on a new album. I think he was working on Surreal then, and he's like, come in. And
what year was this? Just for referencing for people.
1999, 98, 99, around that time. And so, I went down to Pete Ware's studio, scared to shit, like, bloody hell, what am I doing? And Pete Ware had a studio in Kidderminster in the back of his house. Really lovely guy. And of course, I knew who Pete Ware was. So we come from a generation where we grew up on reading inlay cards. And I knew who Pete Ware was. I knew where Famous Studios was, and starstruck by working with Pete. And then we put Umbi down. It didn't come out for a couple of years. It didn't come out till after Dub Conspiracy. But yeah, Serge Anarchy, I owe him everything. He's the one who gave me my first chance, and he was like, Tarli, just do it. Yeah, he said, just do it. And funny thing is DJ Shake from Kiss Records rang me as well. He's like, who gave you authority to go to studio? Meddar, yeah. And the little kid, man, is like, you booked into studio to do this. You should have asked me first. I'm like, but I don't know your number. Serge just sent me. So like, that was an interesting kind
Why
of.
was that? Because like the copyright issues, or who was
It wasn't
managing what?
corporate. It's more about budgets. Like obviously, DJ Shake didn't know who I am. He probably doesn't. But it was a case of some random kids got into studio on my time, yeah, to work on something which I haven't sanctioned, so so to speak. So for me, that was my first kind of experience of kind of a bit of a negative energy. But in hindsight, I get it. It's his money, it's his dollar, and he's probably thinking, I want to get up, move to get out to studio,
But it's interesting you kind of say that because when when you kind of have these conversations, it's always kind of that your first experiences are your base, isn't it, or what it's going from.
Yeah.
If that you said it, you just touched on the negative, nervous energy, whatever it was. If you already got that kind of setting as you're going into a space of creativity, it could contaminate it, it could stress you out, it could distract you.
It can. And I've got to say that wasn't just the first and only time. I mean, there's been many occasions where I've been kind of engulfed in kind of negative energy. But Ricky, the thing is because for me, it's always been a hobby and a shonk. I've never really been 100% emotionally invested in it. So for me, it was never like, I've got to do this to pay the bills. I've got to do this to put, food on my kids' table. Hannah. So for me, because it was a hobby, when it didn't hurt as much as it maybe have done if I was kind of, doing it professionally.
Mm. And then when did you kind of expand down the road to kind of dub conspiracy? How did that happen?
So after I did that, I got a bit of kind of encouragement through the house, like Joe's, I thought, I'm gonna do this. I really enjoyed that. So Pete gave me some sounds and some samples, and I started kind of making beats. And I had a real small Yamaha sampler called the SU10 that just make little samples on that and play them over various.
Was it all self-taught? Like how you like?
At that point, it was. At
Yeah.
that point, and it's probably very wrong as well. I put together some remixes of like kind of various songs, whether they were Western or Punjabi, with like kind of instrumentals and stuff on there. And I kind of gave them out to a lot of places. One there's one label in particular on Soho Road who took it from me, and when I went back in for to get the feedback, the girl who used to work behind the counter, she's like, yeah, so and so hasn't heard it yet, but whenever we're feeling a bit down or a bit kind of a bit bored, we put your CD on just to have a laugh. I'm like, okay, that's nice to know.
What as a piss take?
Yeah.
So hang on. You've gone in there in good intentions to like, oh, here you go, blah blah,
Yeah.
and they come back with saying like, oh, when we want to have a laugh, we put on your work.
Yeah. But that's cool though, because that label went out and kind of made quite a name for itself by kind of doing the kind of things that they were laughing at that I did, and that's cool. It's all good, isn't it? But yeah, so sent out demos and stuff. Couldn't really send out Sergio's song to anybody because he hadn't released at that point, and it wasn't mine to share even as a demo. I think Metro Music, Sunny Suri, I'd met him a couple of times. He was interested. Only मैंने 8-9 महीने दा लटका के रखे अब करते हैं कुछ nothing. And being a DJ and a local lad, I mean, I spent most of my spare time just hanging around all the music shops on Soho Road, as you do.
Yeah.
And on that note, props to Jason, the shop, Jason, Uncle, and Raj, kind of pioneers of music retailing in Birmingham or the Midlands. He's going to spend a lot of time there. And then Bollywood Music opened at the top. I don't know if you remember that opposite.
Yeah. Because it was either Jason. If ever you were looking for something, it was always OSA or Jason was definitely going to have it. It was either Jason wasn't that guaranteed.
OSA was the place to go for old school stuff. So
yeah.
At one point, they were selling all of their vinyls for like £4 each. So I bought 2 of everything.
Yeah, good thinking.
Yeah. So like OSA was for the old school stuff. Jason's was if you needed the stuff from India, the new stuff, and all the old stuff, they had it there. Then there was Soho Music by S&D.
Yeah.
But then when Bollywood Music opened, I got really kind of familiar with the guys that worked there and became really good friends with a couple of guys called Lucky and Imran. Imran Ahmed, who's actually the son of Shabir Ahmed, Moviebox, he now runs Revere Records. Become really good friends with Imran and Lucky. Lucky is actually, Makji, the producer, it's his son. So all show up to London. They say, yeah, and I became friends with them, and I go, look, this is what I want to get into, and this is what I'm doing. So they introduced me to Lucky's dad, to Makji, and I went into Coventry Road, played them, what I'd done.
So at that time, then, because one of the clear things that what I kind of learned to do is, especially when is this kind of give the impression of what was being released at that time. So what was the kind of peer pressure? Because it's you can understand someone's journey, but I think some of it around the creativity of what was being released at that time and who was the kind of, not the competition, but the competition.
I'd say this was around the time when Orchid came out, Jazzy B, Section Dashinda Body, Just in the Way It Is, the early 2000s. This was just before RDB, kind of blew up, around the time of Dr. Zeus's debut album, and around that kind of, that Roma MV kind of transition around that time.
Yeah.
And the MV magazine, the Snoop magazine was on paperback at that point.
No message boards yet.
No. This is around the start of like pre-message boards. We'll get to that in a bit as well.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
But yeah, so went in to Moviebox, spoke to Mac Budgie, and he's like, "Who do you want to?" He goes like, "We've got these are the labels that we've got in our conglomerate. Which you want to sign to?" And just before I could say Moviebox, he went, "Now I'm going to sign you to Columbia Records because Moviebox is full at the moment." But for me, it was the same. And tomato, and I'm like, "It's cool." So yeah, signed a 5-album deal with Moviebox. Mind just blown within seconds, and I'm thinking, shit, I've been like running around trying to talk to people who have like kind of, been frequenting for years, like that one store on Soho Road, or whether it was at Metro down London. And like these guys, they've clearly got a plan, and they want to take a risk on me.
So what does it? Sorry, I'm sorry. I just want to answer the questions at this. So what does a contract look like from that bit? It was like, did you have a time limit where you had to get those five albums in? Because it's straight away, if someone gives you like 5 albums, right? You're looking at nearly 50 songs just there and it roughly, and then you're putting them down.
I can't remember what the contract looked like. It's been a very long time. It's been 20 plus. But it was quite a legitimate legal document, and the way the structure of the contract was broken down is that, there's 5 albums, 5 budgets, and then, there were certain terms that, I'd have to hand the album in at a particular time once the budget was allocated, and then the label would have a certain amount of time to release it before they give it back to me. So like, they'd have like a 90-day, they'd have to release it within 90 days of me submitting my master and stuff. So it's quite legitimate. It wasn't like a 2-page.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a.
At that time, Moviebox was pushing out loads. Like the albums were coming. I remember. Yeah. The artwork changed, and everything started out.
It was just an amazing kind of movement to kind of watch and be a part of. Their design work was in house. Their distribution was in house. Their videos were in house, and what they really did was the amount of money and time they invested. I mean, it was a proper organization. It wasn't like one banda, doing his, carrying the business out in the back of, his shop or anything. These guys legit knew what they were doing, and they had a business model. So Tintin, the guy who did the covers, he'd bang out 15, 20 designs like every other day, and he'd just like pick stuff, and you'd go in and give him your ideas as well. And I signed around the time when the DJ Vix signed at the same time, roughly around. The Lick had already come out, so I think Surinder Rattan's EP was about to come out. Kami K, these Ami Rai, these are the kind of guys who I was kind of coming kind of forward with at the same time, and it was such a kind of a team effort as well. There was no competition, there was no animosity. It was like, we're all Moviebox artists, we're a team.
How did you then? Okay, I've always wanted to ask you. how did you kind of book? Like you've already given a similar scenario at the beginning and did it follow through. Where
Yeah.
how did you book studio time? Was there like a hierarchy? Like because I'm guessing if somebody like Jazzy or Shindok, like no one's getting anything. There's
Yeah.
but like
So that's a good question. That is. Um, so Moviebox had their own. They had one studio at that time, Comedy Studios. Jim Lansbury used to be the engineer there, and that was their own studio. And you'd have to obviously wait. You'd have to kind of keep bringing and seeing when you could get it. And certain artists block booked it because Shindabadi was kind of probably working on like seven
yeah.
projects at the same time, and around the time of doing the Dub Conspiracy, Jussie was working on Reality Check, and other people were kind of just going in and out. So we got to the point where uh, I was waiting in the queue, but then our gig, I met Dr. Zeus, and we kind of instantly kick it off. We became mates, and he's like, he asked me like what I'm doing. I told him sign to Moviebox, just waiting to get into studio and stuff. He's like, look, let me introduce you to my man, to Cam, to Frantic, innit? And see if he can like kind of get you some time. And I asked Moviebox if he was cool, and they go, look, here's your budget. This is how much money you're getting. Could you tell my July spend your McDonald's if you want,
Yeah.
innit? Which I probably did. Yeah. Emini seta bani hai diyan.
Yeah, no, no,
So,
no.
so booked in with Cam, and and that's where I recorded the whole of the first album, Dub Conspiracy. It was all done at Frantic Studios, and for me that was a mind blowing experience as well. Again, being an inlay junkie, I knew who Cam Frantic was.
Yeah, yeah. Another kind of
Lucky.
unsung kind of pantheon of Punjabi UK Bhangra, you know what I mean? Just doesn't it's not like not flashy or nothing, you know what I mean? And I'm like we just done the podcast with Buta not too long ago, and
Yeah.
the way he was kind of eulogizing about him, it just like it just makes you thinking that who's the producers.
Genius. And if my memory serves me correct, Cam used to tell me that he never learned the guitar, but he was a maestro, a mad magician on the guitar, and some things come naturally, I guess, and he was a natural born talent. And for me, the memories that are recording of Frantic Studio are more about the fun and the good vibes I had there than what I learned or like kind of the magic we made.
So
I'd kind of go,
how would you kind of like bring up the conversation of like what I'm saying is like you got a lot of let's say a lot of the mainstream artists or singers are already on the label with Moviebox. So
yeah.
how did you kind of like would they were they forthcoming to say like I'll give you a vocal, or like would you have to source someone the pressure to get somebody new or get something out of the box, and so like there's no conflict?
I think at the start there was a case of, look, we've got loads of vocals. Yeah, have a listen. Tell me what you want to pick. And I took loads of vocals. And the vocals that I picked from an archive for the first album was the one for Love Janjua, the Romy Gill one, and the Richie Money one. And then I kind of met Dalvinder. I knew him already, and then Tariq. I met Tariq at Frantic Studios. He was recording not Tere Sadke. I think it was Red Alert. He was recording one of his albums there, and he Cam introduced me to him. And when I told him, sign to Moviebox, he it was let's do something, and then we need Sony 3 3. But yeah, at the start, the label had vocals. They were like, you can either go out and record. We got loads of vocals here as well. And Master Slim, they had loads of Master Slim vocals as well, and I picked one of those.
And did you? So when you look back on there, was there ever a song that you think, shit, that one got away, and I got off, I could have taken it?
I can't really remember back that far.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, it's fair. It's fair. That's just me being
No. There's probably others, later on down the line where I just think, shit, that was a missed opportunity. But like back then, every song I picked, I really, really loved doing. I mean, my favorite song on the Dub Conspiracy is the ballad I did with Tariq, the sad love song.
Yeah.
Growing up on again sad songs. I've always
living in West Brom at that time, it was very sad. time and occasion.
But still,
I'm Handsworth, so I'm always gonna. To be fair, I ain't got a bad. I've got a good relationship with West Brom. Her job does it. He had a heart attack there, so we can't really say anything
yeah,
to him. But I think West Brom nurture quite a lot because a lot of the like football tournaments were there. A lot of kind of community stuff was happening at that time, and you'd meet kind of the same kind of characters.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, did that kind of have a you're not you're close enough to the Bhangra and like the Handsworth, but then you're just out of it as well, in it to kind of do. And that was that where Dalvinder was living at the time as well.
No, I think so. Davinder's a Handsworth lad as well. Handsworth squad.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's really we can't credit him or anything then.
He's one of your boys. So
Nah,
I met Davinder.
hang on, let's clear. Handsworth Wood is not Handsworth. Okay, they are. It's not. Nah, mate. They ain't got the right postcode.
No, what's the postcode for Handsworth? Wood.
B21.
Okay, for the Wood. 21 with the Wood.
It's B20, B21, but B21 is the real like that's the it's like it's like Smedic's got its hardcore as like B66, you know what I mean?
Yeah, cool. I get it. So I met Dalvinder at Crystal Records, a company that he kind of joined, and he did his first couple of albums there. So I met them because I mentioned Michael Sandhu earlier from Central Boys. He released an album, and that came out on Crystal Records as well. So being a roadie, I'd kind of go with Michael to meet Soka Desi. I think that's what his name was, and that's where I met Dalvinder and became friends. And becoming friends with him, we became like kind of boys, and I was introduced to a songwriter called Suki Tandy. He is related to one of my relatives, Sonny Desi. You probably know him, local guy, and so Sonny introduced me to Suki, and Suki had just recently wrote a song. He wrote Bali Jack Pals Ranja, and I'm like, okay, but we would go around his house and have sessions and stuff, like as you do back in the day. And he pulled out his book. He goes, "Man, I don't then give the and he showed me Najdi Punjabi. The composition was different when he first showed it to me. It was more along the lines of Dulla Patti, and Dalvinder was with me there as well. And I'm like, Dave, what do you reckon? Should I song off Body? And we did. We took it off him. So took the song off him, and I just went home. Not the same night when I was sober. I went back home, and following morning, tried a few different ideas and stuff. We went to Cam's studio, and Dalvinder goes, "Look, let's just change the dodge a little bit because it's folk, it's Marnock style, but maybe it'll work in this way," because I had an idea of kind of doing something, on the kind of the exhibit beat. And he changed the composition, and here we are,
And the movement was quite a lot of kind of the hip hop beats were kind of dominating that time as well, weren't they?
Yeah, I just think with every every kind of generation within the kind of the history of UK Bhangra, there's always an influence. Whether it was reggae, whether it was kind of UK garage, drum and bass, and a hip hop. And around that time, it was hip hop was working, and being a hip hop fan, I've always been a hip hop fan. It was only natural that we did it like that. With the dole, the whole client don't get the dole. They look what you pretty simple, kind of simple output. A dole, alcohol.
It was also the explosion of videos as well, because I remember that video where because it was always like, what was it? Was it Z Music, a Music Box or something? I can't remember.
It was before Music Box. Music Box was the kind of the pay-per-view kind of vibe in it, where you'd ring up and you'd
because I remember used to go into certain like music shops, and they used to be behind. I've told this before, where they used to just keep ringing and dialing they want through it using payphone cards in it, just not registered anyway, just blasting them out.
Yeah, I remember that. It'd be Saturdays when all you'd watch on ZTV was Mar Gaya Tera Nista. Remember that?
Yeah. Remember the song Gangster? That was on all the time.
Yeah, that's a classic tune though. But I think SK1. It's the SK1 with Mar Gaya Tera Nista.
Yeah, he did a track. I think Jay Shaw's in the video.
Yeah. He did Jay Sean and Moviebox and a couple of the others in the video. Yeah.
It was like, he had a bad track actually. I saw it came up on my TikTok about 3 days ago. That's why I think
Yeah.
that's why I knew that bit, but that was hilarious.
But yeah, those are the days when, similar to kind of buying views these days,
Yeah.
that kind of vibe has always happened in some way or another. Back then, people would ring and put their own songs on, and now people kind of buy views. It is what it is. Isn't it?
And Tarly, at the time, so roughly how old were you at this and at this age? And then like what the club scene was exploding as well, weren't it? Like at
Yeah,
uni. I remember seeing you a few times at uni and stuff and popping
22,
here.
I was about 22, 23 around that time when kind of things kind of, started working for me. To be honest with you, Nats to Punjabi was an overnight hit. For me, I wasn't really expecting it to blow up the way it did.
Mm.
To be honest with you, the week it came out, we went to Tenerife, and I remember kind of coming back and turning my phone on, and I'm like kind of getting gone like where you been? We've got like these interviews lined up for you up in the country, and like me and Davinder and a couple of other guys, we'd been sending it up in Tenerife, so we come back straight away, and we jumped on the press tour. But yeah, it was quite something. I wasn't expecting it to kind of blow up the way it did, and it was actually number one in the first ever BBC Asian Network chart as well, which was
Oh.
quite kind of something. It was shocking.
Well, considering it's 20 years, like they're
Yeah,
celebrating the anniversary, and you got the first number one.
and I was petrified when the album was coming out. I was saying to Shabir Uncle, I'm like, you're releasing me on the same week as Tiger Styles Pizza, that RDB are releasing Urban Flavors as well. And he's like, Tarly goes, don't worry about it. If it's good enough, it will sell, regardless of what else is coming out.
Yeah.
And that's true.
And that still stands today as well, isn't it?
I mean, back then, you'd go into, a record shop on a Friday. The Friday, nikal di hongiyan sigan te bahar.
Yeah.
Friday or Saturday morning, and you just buy 3 or 4. And if there was more tapes out that week than the money in your pocket, you just go the next week and get a few more.
Yeah.
So, it kind of made sense, but yeah, it was pretty scary.
So were you getting the same reaction? Like, we could be pretty narrow focused when you're thinking about when we talk about this, just kind of UK. What was it? Were you getting an international response from that release as well?
Not really, because I didn't really have a forum to kind of reach out internationally. Um, Funny thing is, a few years later, I did go to Canada because I've got family that live in Toronto, and I went into one of these video shops in Toronto, and they used to all sell the fake kind of copy CDs in it, like the
Yeah.
compilation. All of them had Nats to Punjabi on, and I'm like to the guy, behind the counter, a young lad. I'm like, buddy, this is my song. What are you doing? And he's like, who are you? And I got pointing my song out to him. He goes, yeah. He goes, we like this song here. It's a very popular song. They know today.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Canadians, Hannah. And got talking to the guy. We became good friends. That's Jyoti Dillon from Planet Records. That's how we randomly met because I was trying to have a
Because
go.
you are his bestseller.
Yeah. So yeah, so from that perspective, I don't really know if the conspiracy came out in India at that time.
Yeah.
It was around the time when kind of multi-territorial kind of deals are about to go off. I mean, like Jazzy Shinda, Buddy, and all the big artists, they had their kind of multi-territorial releases already, but that was only a scope for the big names. I think the market opened up to everybody around the early 2000s when I started off. So my second album that got a release, a proper release in India.
When you just look back on it now, as you're a lot more matured, do you look back on it with fond memories, or do you see it as like just stress, just fun or enjoyment?
I have fond memories. I have memories where I just think, did that really happen? Did I really go through that? There was a lot of opportunities missed, Ricky. Some were intentional. Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Some were unfortunate where, people let me down, or, relationships weren't as I perceived them to be. But I got no regrets, no regrets at all. It is what it is.
What
You
was
know,
it? What if you could pin down one opportunity that you thought, oh man, I'm not saying it's like not a regret that you thought back around the decision.
one opportunity where I really regret missing. Um, that's a good question. There's loads, absolutely loads. Don't know.
All I
Don't
want
know.
is one.
I know which one is one. I think there was a time when I could have been more savvy with like kind of the time and the budgets I was given, and I could have worked with more artists within the roster of Moviebox. I just there was a time when I was just wasn't taking things seriously. You know, my head wasn't in the right place. Like we talked about earlier, I think I started believing my own hype a bit too much.
Hmm.
You know, and maybe kind of going out and kind of just getting drunk all the time and not kind of focusing on the art because it is an art. You know, maybe I could have networked with different people, but with what I did, you know, it's all good.
And what was the kind of attitude of the scene at that time? Was it like I know that it's always been heavily focused in politics, but it's always had its good moments and bad moments as well. What was it like for you?
I think around the time that I kind of things got kind of set up for me, it was a good time in the industry. There was a lot of unity, and irrespective of how things were probably behind closed doors, multi decided we're taking this here, and the gig scene was booming, as you know, around the time that you were at Trent and stuff. Um, you know, you'd go to gigs, and RDB would be there, Zeus would be there, Vix would be there, LOP would
Tiger
say.
style. Tiger style was I just lived down these sides. They were
Exactly.
smashing.
And it'd be great just meeting all these guys, just everyone getting ready for the slots and whatnot. And it was cool. It was nice. There's no animosity. There was no beef. Everybody obviously was, in some way or form competing with each other. But it was a nice community feeling, and everybody appreciated the talent that everybody was bringing out.
So, I mean, like you've worked with a range of caliber of artists, and I've always kind of stopped myself from like trying to explain someone's discography to them because one, normally when I kind of look at it, it's always wrong anyway with dates and stuff like that. But also, I try and like I learned this from the Buddha one was like let him tell the story of what was coming out there. So I'll ask you like, what was the next steps that were kind of on your music career?
Okay, so after Dub Conspiracy did well, and it was commercially really good as well for the label. I went in and I had a bigger budget because
Four albums left, bigger budget
what
now.
album left. I'm on the second album now. They give me a bigger budget, and they're like, Tarli, we're gonna give you this much. What do you want? And I just threw a number out there and like, yeah, here you go. And I just ushered me out the room. And when I first looked at the check, I'm like, really? Did I just got this? Yeah. But my first album, um, and we're talking 2001. My budget must have been about 2.5, 3 grand. Yeah, and that was nothing. But what helped me was because I was given a lot of vocals, all cut up actually gave me that in it. But
Yeah.
the budget I got for TD2, it was extravagant compared to what I had on the first one.
Mm.
So for me, being the cocky young lad it was like, right, what do I want to do now? And I'm like, fuck it, let's go India. Yeah, so that's like,
What do you mean?
no, I didn't go out there. I'm like, let's go India. I can record with anybody I want in the UK, but being a fan of folk music and living legends, that were around at that time, I'm like, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna try and learn something, and kind of meet people and see what I can cook up. So I took some ideas with me, and at the time, Moviebox, because all of the Moviebox artists were going to India to record or to do some sort of business, they had hired like an agent, like a guy who would handle all the business of all the artists. Amit Sharma, his name was, son of Savjiko. So he was like on the books with Moviebox, and he would coordinate everything from like kind of hotel accommodation to studio arrangements and introducing with singers. So I've landed in India with one of my mates, and Um, kind of checked into the hotel, Hamit's come and he's introduced himself and he's like, so what you want to do? So I ran a whole list of ideas off him. I said, look, I want to do this. And he told me which ones were possible. So I went to India with a tape with some folk songs that I grew up listening to, and on there I purposely put one song on 4 times just to emphasize to myself that T, you got to do this. You want to cover this, and that was Gabru Punjab Da by Suninder Shinda. So I said, can we go and see Suninder Shinda? I want to really, really do this again. He said, yeah, shouldn't be a problem. So we went down to Ludhiana to his office. I met him. And if you ever met Sundar Shinda, he's a character.
I haven't personally met him, but I know people have met him, and you automatically know you're in who's in charge of the conversation.
It's this amazing energy. I can't believe how starstruck I was when I first met him. So I met him in the office, and he already knows Ami because everyone knows who Sabji is. Kokewali Sabji, they called her at that time. And, told him who I was. And he goes, Tum Land to aaya? I said, Hanji. And he's like, Lagda nahi, Punjabi de to bahut soni bolda. I went, Utte mere varge bhi hege jehdi Punjabi badhiya bolde. He's like kind of saying this was like the pre-cookie days anyway, like cookies take the piss out of the UK vaccines, innit? He was like saying like, yo, you're from the UK, you could speak really good Punjabi. So I told him what I wanted to do, and he goes, "Kitta karna kita?" And I told him that I go, "Bhai, apan jidan tusi originally kita siga, main ode jidan, lage shake karna. I want to do a tribute to what you've already done, but with with a bit of a new vibe. But I don't want to kind of go draw, but I don't want to go like kind of crazy on it. I want to keep it, essentially folk." He liked the idea, and we kind of met the following day in Hoshiarpur at a studio. He put that down. But before I kind of left Ludhiana, it's like Ranjit Mani's office is only around the corner. Should pop in and see him, see if he's there. I'm like, okay. So I went in to see Ranjit Mani, told him I'd already done a song with him on the first. I'd already had a vocal.
Use the vocal, yeah. Did he know that? Did he know that?
No, you know what? I think at that time
it was a different vibe. Yeah, a lot of people didn't know.
Artists, they would just like kind of, bread and butter and stuff. They just sell a lot of vocals, and some of them wouldn't even know where it would end. But yeah, I told him which one, what song I did, and then I took some lyrics with me to India, and Devraj Uncle had given me a song, which I thought actually, you could do this. What do you think? So I showed it to him, and I took it on the tape that Uncle had kind of sang it for me in a composition, and he liked it. And he actually did that song purely because it was written by Devraj Jasu. Rest in peace, Uncle, man. And so the next day, Hoshiarpur, we went to that random studio. Ranjit Mani rocked up, Suninder Shinda rocked up, Sarjit Kaur rocked up, and they just a whole day they just spent in the studio just recording the songs.
And what was it? How did you? I'm always kind of interested in around mentality when you're surrounded by people who are winners or just market leaders in what they're doing. Was there anything that you picked up when you saw how they were operating, and how did you manage that dynamic of when you've got somebody like that in there? Were they leading you, or were you leading them?
So, firstly, like when I kind of met all of the singers, whether it was Sarjit Kaur or Ranjit Mani, I was a bit kind of quiet and timid, a bit shy, like, obviously a bit of a fanboy moment.
Yeah.
And then very quickly I realized, these guys are human. They're just like me, they're just normal, because you see these guys like on VHS tapes or on stage, and it was quite surreal seeing them kind of punch out the vocals so quickly and so meticulously. I didn't even really need to give them any guidance, to be honest with you. मेरी कोई औकात नहीं सी उन्होंने कोई guidance देनी. These are senior super artists. Ranjit Mani, legend in his own kind of way, innit? They just came in, they just did their work, and I was happy with how they did it. And it was as easy as that, really.
Hmm.
This is still like the naive novice Tarli those days. For me, it was a case of I was more kind of in awe of the fact I'm in another country, I'm recording, I'm pretty much kind of living the life, the dream. You know, it was all kind of.
How are you able to kind of balance your work? Like you've always said you always had your work that you're going
Yeah.
to. How are you able to kind of balance that and keep yourself grounded at the time?
Annual leave. There was a time when I wouldn't kind of go to any family functions because all of my annual leave was either used for kind of Friday or Monday kind of bookings,
Gigs,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
gigs, or kind of tours, or when I went to India for recording, and that's how I did it. But you know, for me, it was always a case of I ain't gonna give up what I do in the daytime. I did think about it a couple of times. Um, but you know, my gut used to always say, "Nah, T, just stick to what you're doing," because I enjoy what I do. You know,
mm-hmm.
the industry I work in, I've been in that industry for over 20 years now,
Yeah.
and I enjoy what I do, so I just stuck to it.
So then, like what did you feel the reaction to the album was when it came out for you?
So TD2 for me, Jawari Wali again, you know, overnight kind of blew up. Uh, I opened with Gabru Punjab. The label wanted me to open with Jawari Wali because it was a commercial song.
Yeah.
But for me, Gabru Punjab, that was the anthem. It was the big kind of the big vocal, the big dolls, the big Punjabi sound, and that's what I wanted to do. But the label, like, no, open with Jawari Wali, that's going to do it for you. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Jawari Wali was still a big song. I recorded Mishi Shara Baji on that as well. That was another kind of cover version we did. We did the Vich Bachkina Jan Guriye, the Shara classic, you know, which we recorded. Who else was on that album? Savjiko was on it. Gosh, I can't even remember. It's been that long now. A few others on it as well. But yeah, I mean, for me, you know, that was the biggie. Gabru Punjab was for me. But it wasn't commercially as popular. Plus, it was like a bit of a crazy tempo around at that time. You know, 170 BPM, like real fast kind of doors. Now, to see the guitar bass out there, now to see, you know, normally dance cars out there. It was a bit of a,
Yeah, because
bit of
because
a
that's pretty fast. Even like it's up. Well, it's not. The songs now are faster, but like for then it was going to be pretty crazy,
yeah.
wasn't it?
So it was like kind of drum and bass kind of tempo, and I actually kept one of the verses back from the song, and I did like an interlude where one of the verses I did like a drum and bass version.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, it was a bit of a crazy tempo, so it wasn't that kind of it wasn't that kind of song that would kind of blow up in gigs when I'd kind of go on gigs. So it was never kind of requested at kind of the weddings that I DJ'd at. Jawari Wali was the one that kind of worked.
You had Rahat Fateh Ali Khan like vocal. How did you get that then?
Several years later, that was. So after I kind of moved on amicably from Moviebox, you know, I did 4 albums with Moviebox, and
Yeah, no. What I was saying was like, was that at the time where like it was sourced earlier around there when you were going around the
no,
offices and stuff like that?
the Rahat Fateh Ali Khan project happened like probably about a decade after kind of the early stuff I did.
Yeah,
Um, and
because
that happened.
the only reason why I say that was because sometimes when there'll be like a bank of stuff that people have already got, and it does take up to that time. I'm always interested because when the stories of when some of the more successful songs come in, it's like it was an
Yeah,
old vocal. I had it ages ago, but
yeah,
you already said at the beginning you had one vocal which was 2 years old
yeah.
or from when it was released.
So the Rahat Fateh Ali Khan songs were actually part of a huge catalog that High Tech owns. Of,
Okay,
and you know they've got the High Tech. You know they're known for their Romeos and Ranjas, and you know
yeah,
they did all those crazy DJ Chino mixes, but they also released a lot of like kind of local Atullah Khan, Rahat Fateh Ali Khan, lots of kind of
yeah.
local Pakistani kind of music. And Chino, you know, I'd not long kind of moved on from Moviebox, and again, you know, we made switch with Chino and his brothers. And he's like, I'm like, cool. I said, you know, I can do something now if you want. And he's like, what you want to do? And he goes, I've got some new stuff that I haven't kind of released yet. He goes, but do you want to have a kind of a bash at like some Rahat songs? And I'm like, okay. So he just basically gave me his catalogs, like 15 CDs. He goes, take all of these. I've got all these vocals, and tell me what you think. So I just went home, listened to all those CDs, and just picked the songs. So the Rahat Fateh Ali Khan project is more of a remix project rather than like
Yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
you know like
Did you ever get? In fact, I'm moving it forward. I think like, I want to step back for one thing that you said. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
no, I haven't. I do know that he's heard the stuff, and he was pretty fond of a couple of the tracks on the album, but I've never met him in person.
Mm-hmm. Your relationship with Moviebox must have been different. I'm just saying, like you moved away amicably, but like obviously they're one of the first ones to take a punt at you. How did it come to the situation where you came to parting ways?
So after TD2, TD2 for me was a success because Jawari Wali was a big song, and it still is. But I think for the label, they didn't feel it was commercially as big as it could have been or as it was with the Dub Conspiracy. So I think the third album, things kind of, the conversations were different and the budgets were different. So, it was a case of, look, we need to kind of, we need to think about what we're going to do next, because obviously, you're obligated to do 3 more albums for us.
And what year was that? Sorry.
2005 is when I started.
So is that about the time where like things started moving online, like moving away from CDs and torrents and stuff?
Yeah. So
because labels were struggling then because things were like the pirate scene was getting really big.
Absolutely. So like pirate CDs and kind of Napster, LimeWire, that was kind of at the time where they were like kind of really kicking the industry in the nuts, every industry. And I think the Bhangra industry was probably one of the last genres to kind of really embrace digital music. I think with mainstream, they adapted very quickly because they had the means to, they had the infrastructure to kind of sit and bang heads together. But it was different for like the smaller kind of world music genres. They adapted late, But yeah, it was a big hit. Physical CDs was a big deal and tapes. It wasn't only the labels; it was the retailers as well.
They started to go under. Then you started to see it going, and then those conversations changing budgets were probably they had to do it.
Yeah, they had to do it. Yeah, absolutely. But then Project Rehab again. That was another project where I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to India on this. And by this time, I'd switched studios from working with Frantic Camp to at that time, Moviebox only had company studios to start off with, but then they opened up another studio on Albion Street in Jewelry Quarter, which was run by a couple of engineers. One of them was Suki Chand, legendary keyboardist from Anarchy, and one of the pioneers of the Kiss and Tell movement. So he'd come back from doing a really successful stint in India, and he'd come and they took him on at Albion Street. So most of TD2 was done there. I think I only did one song, Jania. I did at Frantic TD2. Baki sare mein Albion Street kitte. So then I think that was a time when even from a creative perspective, I started learning more. The Conspiracy was more about having fun, trying blending beats, with vocals and just having a laugh and joke, not taking things seriously at all. But when I kind of got introduced to Suki, I kind of call him my first true star because whereas at Cam's, it'd be a case of, Cam, let's try this, and he'd be like, yeah, he'd do most of the work and he'd be like, yeah, this will work, that will work. Whereas the working structure at Albion Street changed because instead of me asking Suki to try things for me, it was a case of Suki would say like, right, no, try this, try that, let me show you how to do it. And that's when I really got kind of introduced to a lot of the hardware in the studio, using the Akai sampler and kind of getting my hands really familiar with like kind of Apple Logic.
It's mad, isn't it? The amount of engineers who are responsible for a lot of songs that don't get the kind
No,
of.
no, no, absolutely. I think engineers, are a core element to any kind of music production. Even down to mastering. I think people underestimate those individuals that do mastering as well. That's like a huge kind of feat. Like knowing how to master specific frequencies and getting it right for the end user to listen to.
Mm.
But working out Albion Street was quite an eye opener. And again it was a Moviebox studio. Pulla khata jinna marji down low. I'd kind of be in the studio till 3 in the morning and kind of crawl home and wake up in the morning at 8 o'clock and then go to work. Those were kind of really interesting days.
Um,
I got to learn quite a lot there.
and I'll be getting to kind of the health wise in a little bit. What was your health be? Was that being that doesn't sound too healthy at that time?
No, no, it wasn't. But like the lifestyle was different then. The whole kind of rock and roll vibe. Going to studio. We'd be drinking. Well, I will be, and I'd have like a few mates come along, and so we'd be working, but we'd also be kind of having a good time as well. There was a lot of entertainment involved as well at the same time, So that kind of stuff keeps you kind of going on as well, and with any kind of artistic industry, they all come with their vices, and I guess kind of daru and kind of that kind of vibe is part and parcel. I mean, you've been around yourself, you've seen most of it yourself, innit?
Yeah. Well,
So you'd get by. I mean, I knew for a fact was मैं 2 दिन में तक स्टूडियो में बैठा रहते हैं ना सवेर को काम पे जाना ही है. I mean,
yeah.
that kind of mentality we kind of grew up as kind of second generation UK Punjabis, So got through it. Go to work, kind of half liber, and just get just get on with
I
it.
was always waiting for an album to be called like that.
Full liber.
Full liber. That's the one. So like that Project Rehab was you felt like your first kind of true kind of ustad mentorship program out of
Yeah.
I
think TD2 was when I was really started to spread my wings. It was more about kind of my influences and what I wanted to share, in respects to the kind of sounds I grew up with, like the folk vibes, with Gabru Punjab itself. But Project Rehab was the real big deal for me, because I went to India 3 times to record for that. And the caliber of talent again on that album was totally different. Bakshi Billah, Yudhvir Manak, there was HS Talwar, Saab Chiko Auntie again.
Yeah.
Got to record with Serge finally. Serge Anarchy finally found a song, that we did. And I think with Project Rehab was when I kind of got back with Dalvinder as well, because Dalvinder didn't feature on TD2. After
that, I wanted to ask you that question. I was kind of leading up to this kind of section because you two were always together. When I remember seeing you guys like joined at the hip, and you had a lot of success with early on and stuff and that. Did you ever? I mean, as artists individually and stuff, was it a natural thing to kind of do your own things or come back? And what was that? How was that relationship?
So around the time that I did Dub Conspiracy, Dalvinder had also signed to Moviebox and he did his album The Survivor. Now, I don't think a lot of people know this, but Dalvinder is a music producer. He started off as a music producer. His first album, The First Chapter, it was supposed to be a production album, but he ended up doing the vocals himself. Yeah. That's how he turned into a singer. So I think with, and I think this is probably an assumption on my part, I think with the success of Nach the Punjabi, because it was a Tarli product, a Tarli song, I think we kind of naturally at that time kind of drifted away. He went and did Survivor, and then, after Survivor, he kind of got released from Moviebox and kind of went and did kind of his own kind of album himself with his band. Because at that time he kind of ventured into his live band vibes. And then I kind of just kind of drifted off into my own kind of TD world and then kind of just doing what I was doing, whether it was on the live circuit. So I was really busy with gigging as well. um, and we kind of just drifted apart. There's no animosity. But then after, I can't remember what happened and how we kind of reconnected back. But after like TD2, we kind of just reconnected. I can't remember, what the conduit was and what kind of brought us back together again. But we still spoke to each other regularly on the social vibe, and we just ended up back in the studio. I think at that point, Dalvinda had just built a new studio at home as well. He's got an outhouse at his dad's place. And then I thought, okay, so rehab was done half at the Suki studio at Albion Street, and half it was done at Dalvinda's new studio at Sweet Peach.
And how did you kind of like? I'm learning this as well, just in case. But like in terms of like how recreating the sound, because obviously certain studios have a particular kind of sound. Was there any? Did you have to take that into consideration to make it kind of sound the same phonically?
Not really. Now we all know certain studios and certain engineers have a certain sound. Yeah, like going to that old chestnut of Ghost Production or whatever. But I could say, hand on heart, that like in the 5 albums I've done, they're done across Comedy Studios, Planet Studios, Frantic Studios, Albion Street, and like Sweet Peach Dalvindas. I can honestly say that they all sound like my work, and it's not like I've gone in and just sat on the sofa and kissing the complete million. Yeah, it's all got my sound to it, and I've kind of carried that sound over into all the production I've done since on the other side of. And so I wouldn't say there was ever a kind of a problem or a concern that I might lose my sound, because it was my sound, my ears. My pre-production at home.
Did you used to get approached for like, because the Ghost production, and we get to the message board now. Like the Ghost production of that scene, like you were also around at the height of that as well, weren't you? Were you getting approached with it? Was it easy for it to be done?
I don't think I was good enough or popular enough to be approached for Ghost production. I wasn't. I mean, I did some. Yeah, I did some, but it wasn't as much as some people. And even those tracks that I did do, for me, it wasn't a case of I've got to put my specific stamp on it so people know it's me. So like, because Ricky, when back in the day when something was ghost produced, you could tell who had done it. But that out of us, the enthusiasts, we would know. They all studios or I gone up. But yeah, I mean, I dabbled in it, but it wasn't something that I kind of overly reached out, because again, it wasn't, music was never bread and butter for me. It was just a little side thing in it.
We touched on the digital bit, earlier with the music side, but also from in terms of literature and the scene going onto a digital kind of platform, open up on the internet, people allowed to kind of like have anonymity, writing comments and doing all this sort of stuff at that time. The first kind of dissy Twitter in some ways was the Punjab 2000 kind of message boards and stuff. Like, what was your interpretation of what it was like on there? Did you see it as toxic, healthy, whatever?
I just think any kind of forum where people are given, anonymity is, can be kind of catastrophic or dangerous for the end user. You just got to take you on the chin. Criticism is very important. Sometimes people say some horrible shit. It does hurt. Being a big lad, being called a fat bastard all the time on P2K. You get used to it after like the 3rd or 4th message. You think, "Chal, theek hai, alright." मैं कहते कि इसने मुझे खो के खाना है. But Tony Pablo was a really good friend of mine. May his soul rest in peace. He put a lot of effort into P2K, and he really believed in that vision of kind of freedom of speech and and giving people an opportunity worldwide to speak to each other about music. There were some real healthy conversations, if I remember. On P2K and on the Snoop one. There used to be one on Snoop, wasn't there? Snoop.
Yeah, because one of our mutual friends, I think it's a bit unfair to mention it. He used to kind of write a lot of some stuff there, like album reviews and stuff like that. And I remember he did like, a couple, and I would disagree with him, but I just didn't have the time to kind of write these. I mean, I didn't even go on really, but like it was really interesting to see different kind of opinions, especially people
Uh,
who didn't necessarily grow in that area, like living in those areas, coming in and their musical influences. I think from that side, yes, it's healthy, but I think you did start to see a lot more the kind of behind the scenes started spilling over then.
I think it started off with a forum for people to discuss music and whatever, to becoming an anonymous kind of opportunity for people to vent. Because all of a sudden in the 2000s, the UK industry did explode with people like me, talentless, don't
Yeah.
know how to play board, never learned, and you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So there was, I think, some people were kind of a bit bitter. I did kind of sometimes feel those vibes when I'd meet certain people, that, he doesn't know what he's doing, or, so and so, flan, not them, Brad does his work for him, this and that. That was kind of common, and a lot of the old schoolers kind of felt like that, and
Yeah, because
you know,
they've been doing 20 years of
yeah.
learning an instrument and blah blah blah, and then now you got the emergence of bedroom producers just needing a sample here, bang bang, and earning more money than they ever did.
Yeah, I think some of the criticism was unfair because yes, it's easier to make music by sampling and kind of reusing sounds and kind of copying or getting inspiration. But at the same time, you take time and effort, to do that. I mean, if you look back in hindsight, Dr. Dre as an example, everything that he did, he was inspired by a lot of music he grew up listening to, and he sampled that music. And a lot of his kind of keyboard work was done by Scott Storch or Melman. But I think there was a group of senior kind of artists who felt that if you can't play a keyboard, not like any instrument, if you're not a keyboardist or a pianist, you can't be a music producer. I have those kind of conversations with people.
And
I
how did
heard.
you used to do when somebody came up with you that particular argument? What was your kind of how would defend yourself? I would say.
Um, I just wouldn't. I'd be like, ठीक है भाई, तुझे सीने ने थोड़ी गल मानना है, कोशिश करते हैं अपन.
What are you going to say to that? Yeah, it's
Because
true.
I looked up to all these people, yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, uh, I've only ever had one experience where I was really disappointed with one person who I thought was an idol with how
One.
he just
Yeah,
one.
you
And
got lucky.
yeah, everybody else who I've met, and I thought, yo, that was just brilliant meeting. I remember the first time I met Jack. I remember the first time I met Sukshinda Shinda. First time I met Safri Badi. First times there was this one artist who, when I met him, it broke my heart with the conversation and how he treated me and another person. But it's cool because I get it. Afterwards I found out conversations and why he's like this, purely because like we're new cats and we're not part of the live scene. We don't have any stars, and it's like they don't deserve it. This isn't your space. But yeah, that was that.
Oh man, I could kind of hook into that bit, but it's just gonna kind of going from a. I want to kind of move on a little bit as well, Tyler, because like from you, I mean, you've gone through like many different lifetimes, and I've known you in different kind of lifetimes and different kind of headspaces as well. Where you've gone away from music and you didn't want anything to do with it, and then you've come back onto it. You found the dharmic route in that as well, and you continue to go on there. But I also want to kind of highlight your health story, which is one of the reasons why we had this conversation to start off with, and from the
Yeah.
timing wise, I want you to kind of relay and kind of bring it up to today in terms of just from the health aspect, and then we'll touch back onto the music.
Okay, so as it currently stands, I not long ago was given the all clear for cancer. At the start of the year, I was diagnosed with a very rare type of bone and tissue cancer called liposarcoma. So I had a very large tumor sitting behind one of my kidneys, which, because of the lack of research behind sarcoma, the doctors couldn't really understand how long you've been there, how quick is it going to grow, is it going to burst inside me. But I went through some kind of, they call it CAT4 surgery, which is the highest level of intrusive surgery you can have in March. for the removal of the tumor. And here we are. I'm breathing still.
But Tarli, it wasn't just any kind of tumor. Like, how big was this tumor? Because I remember when we had this conversation, I was randomly, I think I sent you a podcast or something like that, and you contacted me and said, oh, I'm in. This is what's happened. And I rang you straight away, and I said, I was like, yo, what's going on? And then you just told me, and I could not believe, even to this day, when I was telling my wife, I was like, this was mad. This was madness.
I think the tumor was just a little over 13 kilos.
13 kilos, yeah.
Yeah, 1-3, yeah.
Like 13 bags of sugar.
Yeah.
And it was being missed as well, wasn't it? That like you
were. It was. So just rewinding a little bit back on how the diagnosis happened. I caught COVID last October, in 2021, and after going through the motions of COVID, I returned to work very quickly. My employer was very keen to get me back into work, and going back into work, I realized that my asthma was just still fucked. I just couldn't breathe properly, so I was puffing on my inhaler like 10. I was taking 10 puffs at a time. And I remember it was a Monday morning, after a weekend of kind of resting. I just thought I'd ring the doctor, and as it is, locally in Sandwell, you can't just up and go into a
yeah. Your leg has to be hanging off to get actually an appointment.
You have to get after the telephone consultation. So I had a telephone consultation, and the doctor called me, and he's like, "What's going on, man?" I said, "I got taking 10 puffs, kind of post-COVID. Can you give me some nebulizer or something?" Because I've had like chest infections before. He's like, "If you're taking your inhaler 10 times, in one go, for a bit of kind of relief, you need to go to the hospital because you might have a problem with your lungs. It could be a clot on your lungs." So I work in Telford, so I'll book a good back here. I'll get back to Sandwell, and told my wife to drop me off. She dropped me to the hospital, and just sitting in A&E for a couple of days. It's crazy. COVID was at its peak as well. Then they did a CT scan on my lungs. They're like, "Mr. Garchi, your lungs are clear. There's no there's no clot on your lungs. We'll still give you some blood thinners, but there's actually a bit of a dark cloud under your lungs, which we don't know what it is, and it's quite big." I'm like, okay. So they kept me in Sandwell for about a week. Every day I'd have like various doctors coming to me with loads of students, plodding and poking me.
Yeah, Dick, look at this guy.
Yeah, look at this guy. Yeah. So they discharged me at that point because they felt convinced that it's big. They don't know what it is. It could be a sarcoma, could be malign, could be benign, could be malignant. But they felt satisfied it's not going to kind of explode inside me. So I got referred to Dudley Road, down the road. Went in there a couple of times. The guy's like, "Don't know what it is." Had another CAT scan, don't know what it is. Then I got referred to a third hospital, QE, which is like a specialist renal hospital. Well, they did a biopsy. And from the biopsy, this is from October to February. I've got loads of appointments. And I think towards the end of February, I got diagnosed with liposarcoma. And they said that, look, because it's so big, we need to operate quite quickly. So you get an appointment within 8 weeks. I'm like, okay, need to operate quite quickly, 8 weeks. So within a fortnight, though, I got a call saying we've had a cancellation. Book you in a couple of days. So I thought, okay, went in and woke up 6 hours. It took the surgery did because the tumor had engulfed one of my kidneys. So what they wanted to do was, due to my age, young lad and all, they wanted to save both kidneys. And they go, look, if we need to get rid of one, we will do it, but we want to actually try and save it, preserve it. So when took him 6 hours to take this tumor out, and the surgeon was telling me afterwards, he goes that when we took it out, it was like this, and it expanded like this. It was opened up like a basketball size because it was kind of compressed behind my ribs and stuff. So I was in intensive care for a couple of weeks until I was moved into a ward, and I think that's when
yeah, that's where we from.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, because you needed things to put you to sleep, and you were listening to the podcast that you heard that bit. Did it? Did the Did you get a chance to see it?
No, I didn't get a chance to see it because just before the I got admitted the night before the surgery, and the night before, because QE is a research hospital, I had various people come in and get me to sign papers, because sarcoma's got such a lack of research. They wanted to kind of, they needed permission to take it away and like do research on it. I'm like, just take it away. Taking it out, I'm going to need it afterwards. It's not like I'm going to make it
Yeah.
So I didn't get a chance to see it, but they were pretty mortified. In fact, the surgeon was telling me it took 6 hours because they had to take several breaks because it was so intrusive and it was so there was a lot of fatigue involved. Carefully removing it. But yeah, I'm kind of really blessed to be here.
And what I know, I mean, it's like God's grace that you're here, and I know it's been in the paper. And one of the key things that you want to kind of push forward, and one of the reasons for this was around the kind of awareness around it, and to push it. So, in terms of kind of signposting and support and aftercare, what was that like for you then? And like, if there's somebody, I mean, like the potential that they have it from there, what's your kind of advice?
So I think when it comes to Indians, वो Punjabi कह लो आप है ना, if something goes wrong, they say kuna paracetamol khala या थोड़ी Vicks ला ला है ना, good old Vicks vapor for
Or
everything.
haldi in it.
Yeah, haldi pila दूध ਵਿੱਚ पा के और तूने तेल माला one of those ones. I think it's important that with all the kind of shit that's going on around the world at the moment with various ailments and bumariyan, if you don't feel right, just seek help. NHS, the app, or pick up the phone. I was really fortunate that I was supported by one of my cousins, two of my cousins who were both GPs, brother and sister. So I was very fortunate to have kind of, within the family, some support of professionals who were kind of guiding me and kind of giving my family as well, some support. Because somebody else in my family is also, well, at the time was also going through kind of their own kind of cancer journey as well. So it was a tough time for the whole family at the time. My advice would be is, if it doesn't feel right, if you feel off, get it checked. Get it checked. Even if you got to, sit in a queue for a while. I mean, sometimes when I ring the GP, it's like, you are 89 in the queue. Just do it, man. Just wait in the queue.
Yeah. I know it's hard, man. It's like the easy option is. I think it's gone harder since COVID. I think COVID sorted it. When the whole system of when you're booking to see your doctor, it was much easier. Yeah. They had free time, and then all of a sudden, since it's kind of creeping back, it's getting harder and harder. But I think you always got your gut feeling. If something doesn't feel right, that's the one.
Yeah. To be honest with you, with my diagnosis, I couldn't feel it, which is still to this day shocks me. I mean, being a big lad, you've known me a long time, innit?
Yeah.
Ali's always been a big lad.
You listen, look, you used to do modeling. It's fine. We've all been there, and then you let yourself go now and again.
Yeah. So for me, it was a case of it was just me, tried losing weight and whatnot, and I'd never be able to shift as much. But now I know what it was because there was something sitting inside me, which was, which wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah. And I think for people listening or watching, imagine something 13 kilos just on your back all the time or moving around, and that's going to affect your day to day anyway.
Yeah, it does. And to be honest with you, the doctor had told me that I'd likely be on my back for a good 4 to 6 months. But I was back at work on phased return within 4. There's only so much TV you can watch, and all that morphine didn't do my mental health any good either. At one point in ICU, I was having conversations with myself. With the
then why didn't you record this track?
Now, honestly, at the start, because I was in so much pain, they kind of give me a little button thing.
Yeah, and you clapping it all the way.
Yeah, and like, at one point where I was having full blown conversations with myself in my head, like not even out.
Yeah.
And my goodness, look, I was gonna take this thing out of my arm, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very prescription medication is such a it's such a wave of addiction out there that it doesn't get the attention that it needs, and the amount of people addicted to painkillers in America that you see, and even in the UK. But I think you'll start hearing it more and more. I was reading it as well about prescription addiction is is one to watch out for.
yeah.
So
So
so then, Tarly, so like you've had a bit of chance to be reflective. You've had a near death experience, and well, more than that. What's the outlook been? Like, what's your kind of? How do you look back on things, and how do you look forward on things now?
so I had a lot of time on my own to reflect because I couldn't even have any visitors at that time. So spent a lot of time on my own in my thoughts, and it kind of made me think. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The night before the surgery, I was absolutely petrified. Yeah, I'm like, I got some phone calls to make. I got some apologies to make. What do I do? What's going to happen to my kids? If I don't pull through. So, it was an eye opener, and it gave me a different perspective towards life as a whole. I, being in sick spaces over the last kind of 8 to 9 years, and kind of trying to contribute in various ways within the community and getting involved with different kind of projects and stuff and different type of people, it's made me think that, what, I need to kind of step back and kind of recalibrate my journey with big man. And essentially we kind of get stuck in this space, which is this kind of herd mentality where everyone else is doing it. You got to do it as well. You got to judge people. No, you got to do it this way. You got to do it that way. For me, I now believe that my spiritual journey is a personal one, and I don't have, I've got to be grateful for the second chance. I did a good deed somewhere and it's paid off. And big man thought I deserved another chance in life. So for me now, my outlook is to kind of just continue focusing on my health and making sure I'm around for my kids and my family and for those that I look that I have a lot of love for. So there was a lot of people who really there was a handful of people who really supported me through the journey I was going through. I didn't really tell many people because I didn't really want it to be a sympathy thing. Another thing was that my sister was going through something similar as well at the same time. And for me, it was like, from a personal perspective, I want the whole family's a thousand blessings to stay with her, my baby sister. I didn't want kind of anybody to take that focus away. So my wife knew about it at home. I didn't even tell my parents. My kids didn't know. But a couple of my friends knew. I could give a shout out to people like Dips Bamra, GV. Really, really kind of held my hand through this emotionally and mentally as well. And I got through it. And for me, the new Tarli is all about kind of being happy, making people happy, not worrying too much about what other people are doing, and trying to lead by example, and trying to get through each day as I can, because Rick, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and we can plan and prepare as much as we can, but it's not in our hand.
Yeah, and I kind of echo what you're saying in terms of, like, if you're going through something deep, or you're going through a trauma, isn't it? Either you kind of learn from it, or you're just going to repeat the same kind of mistakes from it, and you have to try and find that silver line. Look at the pressure that you, like, in the family with your sister, all these kind of things, and then you got your own thing to deal with, and you got balancing your work, your life, your family, everything at that same time. And you do make mistakes when you get a chance to kind of rectify it. I think that's the bit where you have to give it 100, where you're like, okay, look, man, I've made mistakes, you've made mistakes, and you say, let's try and kind of sort it out as much as you can.
Absolutely. And I think there's a saying, like, but get torna sekda, right? Like, the child will fall over several times before they get the balance. And I think life as a whole is like that as well. You need to make mistakes to learn from them. and I think I've made my fair share in life. And if anything, whilst I have some regrets, majority of them, I have some I don't. Some things I've done in life I don't regret. Some things I do, but it's made me how I am now, and I'm kind of grateful for those experiences, either they were good or bad.
Yeah. So I know you do a lot of dynamic work, and it's like you put out some you just put out into the space, and just do, and you've worked on loads of projects for loads of kind of charities and groups and organizations. Like, is there a clear distinction that you're never going to go back to Bhangra again, or is it just going to be just pure dharmic now?
So I think last year I did start doing something. For me, it was a case of 20 years are coming up. Let's just do something just for fun. And I started on. I started on 6 songs, 6 projects I started on. But then I got COVID, and then I got poorly. I just parked it. And the mission was 2022, 20 years. I wanted to release the Dub Conspiracy 2. I actually wanted and I'll play some of the stuff to you as well soon.
Yeah, you will.
For me, the sound I was going with was kind of that early Tarli sound, the kind of stuff I was doing back then. And I kind of feel that kind of hip hop kind of mixed with folk music, it's been like a bit of a big thing over the last couple of years as well. A lot of the India cats are doing it as well. So I'm like, people are doing what we were doing 20 years ago. If I'm going to do a tribute to myself, like an encore, let's just do, let's do a sequel to the first album. So I'd started it, but then, I've had to just put it on ice because I got kind of unwell.
Yeah.
And now it's all about finding the energy to kind of turn the equipment back on, and I've got to be. It's got to be the right time for me. That the mindset's got to be right. I've got to have the motivation to kind of do something. Who knows? I will do.
Yeah, I think like focus on yourself, the healthy. Technically, if you put the poster out now, then it will still class as a 20-year anniversary. A lot of people get away with that technicality.
Yeah.
And then you get yourself at least another year.
Yeah. But a friend of mine told me, he says, whether you release it or not, don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I know the industry's changed a lot. One of the key things that I always hated about the music industry was the aggro and the stress that came with it. Because I always did it as a shonk and as a hobby, and I wasn't kind of financially vested in it, whether I did it or not. It didn't make a difference to my bread and butter. It didn't really hurt that much. But at times I kind of think back and think, it's really stressful. Do I really need that stress on my head right now? Yeah, do I really want to kind of go through all that nonsense of kind of
the politics,
people, politics? Yeah, and obviously the income is different as well now. Significantly. Since since when we started, the hustle is different.
I think it's got more. I was thinking of it. I was at the Orgula concert in Birmingham yesterday.
Yeah.
And I was like, the way I was thinking is that it's just such a street, such an extreme, and where you got people who are spending their own money, like their own money, and trying to get to there, and then you just see the extreme of wealth that can happen with like what odds are selling out Birmingham, and just seeing the amount of people there and like the production levels. Then you're seeing what Diljit's doing with fucking moons in arenas, and then you've got like AP, the numbers, Sidhu, like those kind of astronomical kind of numbers, and the income coming. I think I don't know whether it's the right phrased in terms of it, but it feels the right phrase for me. It's like the poorer of the poorer got poorer, and the richer got richer, and you've got the ones in the middle. For me, is the kind of nostalgic market that they kind of like. It's all right. They can still do what they got to do. But I think if you're a newer artist now, it's easier to release music. But the disposable kind of product that just gets thrown about is a lot quicker.
Shelf life is really, really, really short now. I mean, back in the day, an artist would release an album, and that would be, that'd keep them going for a couple of years. Now, like you have, some of the artists that you mentioned, they'll release a huge track, and then in about 3 weeks' time, they'll release another huge track. Because So the shelf life is short, and I think the memory span of the end users is short as well now, because there's so much coming out, and the music is a lot more accessible now.
That's it. That's the word, access, isn't it?
Yeah, it's access. I think back in the day, it was either a case of the only way you'd find out something new was coming out was either if you open up your mum and dad's this for this and look at the adverts on the inside,
Yeah.
or you'd physically go into a shop, and you'd ask the guy, what's come out or what's going to come out. But now it's a case of you turn your phone on, it's everywhere. You know what's coming out. When people are releasing.
Or don't even know that they've released something
because they released, yeah.
Two songs on the same day, all of it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But supply and demand, it's brilliant. I just think in one aspect, from an art perspective, it's flourishing. Supply and demand, people are getting what they want to hear. Is the artist making enough money from it? That's a different discussion altogether. But I guess now you have to put a lot more time and money into it, a lot more investment, to get a return. And to those of the guys, some of the guys you mentioned, they're doing a cracking job, and they deserve it because they've put that hustle in, they've put that money in, and they get the dividends back. But for someone starting off, I can imagine it can be really, really tough.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, what is your current opinion of the current market? I know you've just discussed the income and the monetary value of it, but like in terms of philosophy wise, the temperature, what do you feel? If you like compare it to when we discussed it before 20 years ago to it is now, do you think it's moved on?
I'd say that the industry has definitely changed, but you're probably asking the wrong person because I don't live and breathe it anymore, and I don't listen to it all. I'll only know of certain songs that are out is if they pop up on my Insta feed, or if a friend of mine who's still in the business releases, or if one of the kids in my family are talking about it.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of saturation. There is a bit of a hierarchy, like there is in every kind of generation of every of the Bhangra music. I'm not really feeling it. But that isn't essentially a negative thing. It's just not my vibe. I like some of the stuff that some guys in India are doing. There's a producer called Sync. I love his stuff. Proof. I love the Lenders. A couple of other guys. If I ever come across their song on Spotify in my daily mix, I listen to it. I think okay. But generally, over the last few years, I haven't really kind of. I haven't adapted to the kind of Dordo Morordo gangster vibe of music. I know it's very popular and fair play, if it works and supply and demand and all, but it's not for me.
Okay, Tarli, I'm going to bring it to a close, but before kind of every episode that I do, I asked I give an opportunity to the guest to kind of, is there a bandwagon that they kind of want to jump on? Is there a bandwagon that they would jump off, or is there anything that they want to kind of get off their chest? This is their opportunity to do it.
There's nothing I want to get off my chest. I'm just grateful that I'll have this conversation with you, Ricky.
Yeah,
just seeing you on the camp, seeing you on the video just bring back memories.
Yeah, it's good.
A lot of memories that we can't really talk about on air.
We will do eventually. It's just making it a safe space, yeah.
But this podcast you're doing is such a great kind of service to the community, and I guess it can't be easy with all the kind of post-production work you got to do and stuff. So keep at it. From an older brother perspective, really proud of you. You do a lot of kind of community work yourself. So all I can say to those who are watching or listening is be happy. Life is too short. Don't take things too seriously. And just keep smiling. There's always kind of some good news around the corner, but you've got to try and kind of be positive and just keep fighting on.
Tarli, on those wise words, I'll bring it close. And I'd like to thank you for taking time out and raising such important stuff and a trip down the memory lane. So I'll see you soon, and then whenever it comes out, this is the first place you're gonna drop it, bro.
Will do, bro. Respect.
Cheers.
Thanks. Peace.